Hi, John. How are you? The rain has
I'm good.
finally stopped.
Life is good here in Oklahoma.
Good.
I will have quite the grass cutting to do this weekend because and I'm really glad that the microphone in here, the cameras are good and everything, but the microphone doesn't pick up that much ambient noise or you could hear my grass growing. It is screaming outside saying, "Oh yeah, you want to cut us? We're back. It's
Well, my
Thursday. We are totally on top of this." Or what is it? Wednesday? Is it,
Wednesday today. Yeah. So it's sort of overcast here. But I cut my lawn last Sunday, and the soft UK grass that we have over here, we've had like a week of really nice weather. It grew like a quarter of an inch. But we've had some rain now, so it'll probably
it's,
shoot
it's,
up.
it's, it's, it's actually the depleted soils of those old country things.
Yeah.
You need to come to a real dynamic country and see how grass can really grow. Uh, I should say that most of my, I live on a rented property. Most of the grass is not technically grass. It's just very enthused, just like America. A lot of weeds, a lot of cross pollination here, Nick. You never really know. Yeah, you've been to Japan, and I remember when we adopted our son Methodius, and he had a black father and a Filipino mother, and when we adopted him, we had our 6-month-old daughter, and so Mary put Methodius in the stroller, a double stroller with Sophia, little white girl with blonde hair, and the Japanese would come up and do the are those twins? Are those twins? And Mary was like, no, they're not twins. Look at them. And they would look at her and shrug like, you're an American. Who knows who knows you know these they like the whole Castor and Pollux thing and the double things of Leta. That's definitely the way that the Okinawans would look at us like, hey, these crazy, we have a homogeneous culture. We're pretty confident what's going to come out. You guys, do you feel lucky? What's going to happen with this thing? Gosh. Anyways, how did we get on this? Kanreki. It must be a Japanese reference.
It's a Japanese thing. So we are now past the midway point on our month-long celebration of J.K. Rowling's Kanreki. That is her 60th anniversary. So it's a Japanese tradition. They follow the Eastern astrological symbols. 12 astrological animals that cycle through 5 Chinese elements to give us a 60-year calendar. Anyone that achieves their 60th birthday has gone through the whole calendar, and they are about to be reborn into their new life. And this is what we are celebrating for J.K. Rowling. And
they get to wear the brilliantly red
yes,
ray, which
now,
is and
Japanese culture, which we love, has got some really bizarre costumes. I think none more bizarre than the Kanreki costume. Essentially, you dress up your nearest 60-year-old as a newborn baby. Red is the color of brand new birth. And they wear a little baby's cap and baby's clothes, basically the most ridiculous.
Right, we don't know anything about the diaper thing. We're going to just go back to inside. But here's the thing: is all the pictures I've seen of Kanreki are of a joyously happy person. You don't see someone doing a Kanreki ceremony that isn't surrounded by family, and it's almost like a retirement and it's almost like a funeral, in that everybody's there is to celebrate that person and that they're still alive. So it's really quite it's the happy birthday of all happy birthdays, because as you said, it's supposed to be the beginning of their second childhood, in the sense they can be playful and not worry about things, and it's a great time. And we're hopeful that Rowling's second birth is going to be happy. There's no bad dads in her present life. That
No.
she's going to be able to really enjoy her thing, and that she'll continue to write, that she'll have a fruitful second life. So what do you think? Maybe by her 80th birthday, we'll have 20 more books. Maybe we could do the whole thing over again. We could do the 40 things. By that point, I hope we have a critical biography, and we could actually stop doing our little connect the dots thing. How about this? All right. So that's the Kanreki. So, but you're at the lake and I'm at the shed. Yep. Because we're living out Rowling's metaphor of her writing process. I mean, she was asked to give something to the Museum of Curiosity at the BBC in 2019, and she decided to give them inspiration. And in that conversation, she shared the metaphor that's always been in her head, she claims, about how she writes. She goes through the forest of her daily life. She gets to the lake, which is her subconscious mind. And that subconscious mind is crowded with her core beliefs, her key relationships, her experiences, and her unresolved psychological issues consequent to crisis. And that's, that lady in the lake, or she actually has a really odd looking demon in that lake. If we take, she has told us what that lake person looks like. It gives her unformed stuff like molten glass. And that's when she takes it to her shed, away from that lake that Nick is standing by, to her shed, where we get her literary tools shaping that Mary Jane story into archetypal, inspiring story that the world loves. She uses her tools largely from a traditional toolkit. She uses her golden threads, things that she tends to drop into every story that she's written. And we get the core themes, which are very much like the core beliefs that she has back in that lake that inform that story. So Nick has 4 buoys in his lake, or 4 pillars that are holding up, a raft out there in that lake. And I've got my 3 shed pieces that are in everything that she writes. We're looking at each in celebration of her Kanreki. We're looking at all 21 of her published stories. We're not going to do the Harvard talk or longer posts on her website, but we're going to talk just about her name on the cover, even if it was a collaborative exercise. Which brings us to today, Nick.
So we are doing the second of the Fantastic Beasts franchise, and this is the Crimes of Grindelwald. So what was happening here at this point in the franchise? You magically just disappeared for a moment there, John. It's the power of J.K. Rowling's literary magic. At this point in the franchise, J.K. Rowling has said this is going to be a 5-film cycle, but there is trouble brewing. So, cameo in the first film, Grindelwald, was played by Johnny Depp, and prior to release of Crimes of Grindelwald, the social media and celebrity press was filled with the breakup and accusations of spousal abuse between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Rowling has stayed pretty much silent on this issue, but she has been subject to a bombardment of criticism on social media, and some quite pointed editorials from the tabloid press in the UK. On the back of which she published a statement, and she published it on her website. And she says, when Johnny Depp was cast as Grindelwald, I thought he'd be wonderful in the role. However, around the time of filming his cameo in the first movie, stories had appeared in the press that deeply concerned me and everyone most closely involved in the franchise. Harry Potter fans have legitimate questions and concerns about our choice to continue with Johnny Depp in the role. As David Yates, longtime Potter director, has already said, we naturally considered the possibility of recasting. I understand why some have been confused and angry about why that didn't happen. The huge, mutually supportive community that has grown up around Harry Potter is one of the greatest joys of my life. Little bit ironic in hindsight. For me personally, the inability to speak openly to fans about this issue has been difficult, frustrating, and at times painful. However, the agreements that have been put in place to protect the privacy of two people, both of whom have expressed a desire to get on with their lives, must be respected. Based on our understanding of the circumstances, the filmmakers and I are not only comfortable sticking with our original casting, but genuinely happy to have Johnny play a major character in the movies. I've loved writing the first two screenplays, and I can't wait for fans to see the Crimes of Grindelwald. I expect that there will be those who are not satisfied with our choice of actor in the title role. However, and for me, this is the bit in that whole statement that I know was written by Joe. However, conscience isn't governable by committee. Within the fictional world and outside it, we all have to do what we believe to be the right thing. Now, that statement, I'm sure, is a collaboration between her PR company of Hutchinson, Stonehill and Salt and J.K. Rowling. But it is a pretty plain. I understand what you all want. However, it's my conscience and my decision. This is what I'm going to do, which I think is pretty brave, to be honest, because actually, in terms of casting, I'm not sure J.K. Rowling had a veto, but she's essentially saying, if I had a veto, I would say we're keeping him. Now
that played out pretty well, considering how that court case worked out. They would have owed a lot of money to Johnny Depp if they had canceled him. But that
this story moves on, and I think maybe I'm going to save that for the finale. I mean, it's a dumpster fire. We do know that Johnny Depp knew J.K. Rowling prior to the film. Now, we don't know how close they were. The connection.
Didn't he sell her a yacht?
Yeah, the connection is a yacht. So that's
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So in which J.K. Rowling lost a lot of money. So she hired Johnny Depp's yacht for a family holiday in the Mediterranean. Must have had a good time because she then bought it. Helped out Johnny Depp because he was short of cash because he was splitting up from his partner at that time and needed the money. Paid a lot of money for this yacht, used it for a few years around the Mediterranean, but compared to the yacht she's had since, this is quite a compact, we would say bijou yacht, let us say, and is only really suitable for the Mediterranean. Her later yachts have sort of gone literally worldwide. It has now moved to the States, so some brave, foolhardy soul has actually sailed Johnny Depp's yacht across the Atlantic, which astounds me. Yeah. but no longer owned by J.K. Rowling. Although it's when it appears online, often it's described as J.K. Rowling's yacht. It's not.
How much money did she lose? How much money did she lose? Do you remember?
It's in the many millions of pounds. So
so there was conversation that this money was paid to buy Depp's yacht to get him to play the part, and it was there was some sort of quid pro quo thing. She really didn't lose the money because somebody else helped pay for it. Anyway, just
Yeah.
all those people with tinfoil hats out there. This is a story you want to get into. This story.
I
This
guess
is a
I
great
guess it's possible, but there's not many people make money on yachts. I mean, the
People
initial
who buy yachts
builders,
aren't really concerned about losing and
no,
gaining money, Nick.
yeah. So many years ago, my brother was asked if he'd ever considered taking up sailing. And another friend of his said, well, if you want to see if you like it, the best thing to do is stand underneath the shower with your clothes on, ripping up £50 notes. If you enjoy that, take it up.
Yeah. Uh, my father loved sailing. He was, he graduated from Annapolis. He was a sailor, but never. He just a canoe and maybe a sunfish sailboat was as far as he would go. And he said,
Yeah.
that is a losing venture. That is a losing venture. And it wasn't for lack of money. He just said, no, sailing is a game for people that have money to burn. Anyway, but Rowling seems to really, really love it. And she's got, does she rent boats now or does she own a boat now?
Like most things, it's complicated, but I'm going to cut through all the complication and say she owns her yachts. So her last two, Calypso, currently Samsara, they are owned by a management company that is based in a jurisdiction that it's not very clear exactly who the beneficial owner. It's J.K. Rowling. Both of her current and her previous yacht are showing as available to rent, so you can rent this yacht. I'm not sure if anybody has actually ever done that. I mean, it's possible.
Jeff Bezos already owns his own yacht, so he's not, it's not
yeah.
borrow J.K. Rowling, so whatever. There's a thing in the strike things. I think in almost every novel, strike notes that everybody in London of a certain class knows every other person of that class. And I think that must be true of yacht owners as well, right? If you own a super yacht and you pull up to that Mediterranean port together at the same time during the season, you all know each other,
Yeah.
A long way from Church Cottage.
Yes. Yeah, that's certainly true. So, Crimes of Grindelwald.
Oh boy.
So for in terms of lake inspiration, I've taken the easy option out. You can tell I'm not a fan of the films. That my easy option is it's a lot of it's in France. So I'm going for J.K. Rowling French Connection. So
you're talking to a man whose name is Norman French, which is to say, not French, Viking French, and that Normans, especially those who cross the Channel, despise all frogs, even those in that lake behind you, Nick. So this is going to be quite the task for me. Though as a child, I vacationed in Chamonix. That confirmed all of my childhood experience has confirmed all of my family prejudices against things. Anyway, so go ahead. I'm a big fan of the film franchise, so win me over with your description of all things, lake and French.
Okay. Merci, Monsieur Grangier. So, J.K. Rowling lived in France for a year. So as part of her Exeter degree, it was initially languages, and then she sort of dropped German and went for French and classical studies. But it comes with a sandwich, a gap year, that is studying abroad in France to hone her French language skills. And she did that in Paris. She was teaching, or at least acting as a teaching assistant at a lycée, which is a high school in Paris. Not, as is frequently put on online biographies, she didn't teach at the Sorbonne, nor did she attend the Sorbonne, but she was out there
Really?
teaching at a lycée.
And this
Um,
lycée, is it like a comprehensive or is it an English public school?
so when I say we, I say I don't know. So I don't know which particular school she was teaching in, but I would think arranged through Exeter. Almost certainly, it was a state school.
I would have
Um,
thought because Exeter is such a preppy community. I thought they would have connections to French public schools. But anyway, go on. That's good.
so she met some friends that have turned out to be lifelong friends over there. So I think key among those was a lady called Lynn Corbett, and she was there with her partner William Lyon. They were both working uh, for a magazine in the realm of fashion, but they moved on to become celebrity astrologers. So they were almost certainly the three of them, Rowling, Lyon, and Corbett, would have been discussing astrology out there. We know that Jo practiced it when she was at Wydeen. But William Lyon, Lynn Corbett became Starsky and Cox, uh, astrologers to the stars. They published a really very successful book on astrology,
Sextrology.
sextrology.
I have
So
a copy.
yeah, so they looked at the absurd system of the 12 astrological symbols, decided that wasn't enough. They looked at the expanded edition of 14 astrological symbols, decided that wasn't enough. So they went for 24 astrological signs. So you got 12 for each of the sexes. Um,
That 14 house
yeah.
expansion, though, that will come back. I see the dropped point of reference there. That's great. That's great.
Uh, remained friends for many years afterwards. So we know that they have attended parties at Killychassie, so post Deathly Hallows. Actually, when COVID grounded all the flights within Europe, they were stranded in London at that point. They'd just come back from Paris to London, but they wanted to get back to their families in the States and they couldn't do it. Somebody, and we don't know who, but somebody sent a private jet to pick them up and fly them back to the United States. It was J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling heard they were in trouble and sent a jet to rescue them. So important people, I would guess. That the Troubled Blood is dedicated to William Corbett and Lynn Corbett and William Lyon, those celebrity astrologers. Another person is unlikely, I think, to be known to our cousins in America is a chap called Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen. Wonderful Welsh name. A extravagant and flamboyant interior designer. So he's been on very long running BBC TV shows about interior design and people trying to change the looks of their houses, but a very well known personality within the UK and I think Australia. So he's got a show in Australia at the moment along the same kind of thing. But again, they all met up as expats in Paris. I assume they were in the same sort of commune and living together, and have remained friends ever since. But I think key to Rowling's choice, two reasons to Rowling's choice of languages. So she was studying French and German initially and then dropped German. In UK comprehensive school, the standard foreign languages are French and German. So that's what she would have studied at A level. I think key towards her being more sympathetic towards French than German is that, of course, she's 1/8 French. Have I worked that out correctly? Yes, I think so. 1/8. So her mother's maiden name is Volant, without an E at the end. So, and that's fairly significant because it's not a very French name. It's sort of almost French. But that comes from her grandfather's family. Sorry,
Her mother's side.
great grandfather's family, Louis Volant, again without an E on the end. He was French, but his family came from the Alsace region. So,
Border country, border
yeah,
country.
real border country. So actually, prior to the First World War, many of his family were actually in German territory. After the Franco-Prussian War, Alsace was German, and it was only given back to France at the closure of World War One.
Given
When
back.
World
That's a wonderful English euphemism. Given back.
Given back.
Take, taken by violence. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. Guys, that's
So Louis Valant actually was in London working as a waiter when the First World War kicked off, and he went back to France to volunteer. He was relatively old to be a frontline infantryman, and he was sort of put on defensive duties. He fought at the Battle of Verdun, and with some distinction. So when his commanding officer was killed, he ended up in charge of a section that successfully defended against a German attack. He was quite badly wounded, and he was given the Médaille Militaire. Now, again, in class-conscious French society, this was the award that was given to non-commissioned officers. In family history, Rowling understood that he'd been given the Légion d'honneur, which, of course, Rowling was awarded by the President of France in 2008, I think it was. But the history was given a bit more limelight in another BBC TV program called "Who Do You Think You Are," where they investigated her history. A little bit disappointingly, they I'm sure at Rowling's request, they went down Anne Valant's family rather than Peter Rowling. So there's still an awful lot there that is not really understood. But it's clear she's fond of Paris. So it's not just that year in Exeter and then popping over to be given the Légion d'honneur by the President of France, because of course you'd go over for that, wouldn't you? But she has been over there since. It's not well documented. She doesn't tend to tweet where she is. When she's on a yacht, I can sort of track where she is, but if she's in France, I don't know. But on her website, she has a keychain with some model macarons that comes from a shop in Paris, and you can't get, or at least at the time the website went up, you could not buy that over the internet. You had to be in Paris to buy that. It's that keychain seems to be well loved and used. I don't know if it's for her writing room or not. But when she relaunched her children's website, we see the same keychain, but with considerably more wear on it, which makes me think that this is not some prop. This is a genuine item that she uses. So there we are. Key relationships.
Well, I love that Nick, but After yesterday's revelations, I'm thinking, really,
give me a break. It's a film. Give me a break. Give me a book. I can do something with a book.
Really, but you think you're in a hard case. I have to try to, I have to look at this screenplay and try to say something about Rowling's artistry in it. And I'm really at a loss. In the discussion of the first film, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which is really the name of the franchise in the film, kind of confusing for all of us. But anyway, all I wanted to talk about in that was how we know that the original screenplay that was published is not the shooting script, which is the final screenplay that Rowling signed off on. And through interviews with the principals, the actors, the director, the producer, and Rowling, we found out about a lot of scenes that weren't included in the film. Then we got this deleted scenes on the DVD. Then we got the add-on books that had things that weren't in any of those things, but clearly were made with that shooting script rather than the original screenplay final publication, which is just a transcript from the film. And then we got the Lego movie of all things. And so we got just a barrage of deleted scenes that had been filmed. They were in the shooting script and that David Yates decided didn't work. And that just caused this, and what would have been a perfect ring, of course, turns into just, wow, what does that connect with? Why do we have that scene? Well, just like, the finish with Jacob at the I'm going to say subway, Nick, the underground entrance. It is a subway. It is in New York City.
It's in New York. Yeah. You can have that one.
Okay, here I am. And it doesn't match up with anything because we don't have the opening scene where Jacob gets dropped by Mildred because that didn't advance the story fast enough. And we don't get the letter from Theseus. Really, there's a lot of stuff that got cut out of that film. Now, the film people out there always say, oh, John, you don't understand filmmaking, this and that. I say, hey, what I understand is that Rowling is the defining artist of our age in terms of novels, and we understand how she writes stories, and it works profoundly. Now, it doesn't just work in literature. It can work in film, but we'll never know because they never give it a shot. They always cut it up. Now, I would do another review of the butchery that happened with the Crimes of Grindelwald script, but I don't think you have the stomach for that any more than I do. But if you want to read about that and why the book people really just don't have a lot of time for the David Yates, like the play Cursed Child, it was written by Jack Thorpe, and he and John Tiffany are largely responsible for that play, and Sonia Jacobson. Now that world, okay, it has Rowling's name on the cover. She clearly had a large part of in the story, and the characters are her from Harry Potter. But talking about the play and really talking about it as a Shed thing, can we do it? Because it's so collaborative, and the actual writing was another person's. I'm uncomfortable with that, and so we can talk about it, but it's not the same thing as, say, Lethal White, which we just talked about, or Troubled Blood, which is coming up, I hope. That's our frustration. You get to Crimes of Grindelwald and you just take that right to the ceiling because it's a mess. I think it's the film that killed the franchise. Yes, there's clearly the trans wars and the subsequent madness around what the actors did, the actresses did, how Hollywood treated her, etc. But it was the butchery involved. Yet, Nick, there's some good news here. And the good news is that one of Rowling's Shed signatures that is certainly a golden thread is, not as obviously lake oriented as things like Bad Dad and the pregnancy traps and that kind of thing. Those are lake-derived things, I think, which bleed into this. And certainly the subject you discussed in yesterday's program about Lethal White. So I'm still kind of doing the wow shake on. What we get in this as a golden thread is the embedded text golden thread. And that is that from the chocolate frog card in Harry Potter to the mystery book with the drawings in Troubled Blood, every Harry Potter novel, every Harry Potter, every J.K. Rowling work, I shouldn't say every, almost every one of them has an embedded text. I mean, Rowling is a writer who writes about the experience of reading. Every book and screenplay we have had from her first to date has had embedded text, now expanded meaning on this, which characters struggle to come to terms with. And more important, both good and bad guys create narratives they want others to believe in to manipulate or trap them. This is the Shazette and Fabula, that the bad guys put out a story, what we'd call a narrative, and that's what everybody believes, but they're doing it to disguise the true fabula, the true sequence of events that almost nobody really gets. And so not only do we get books and cards and plays and diaries inside the books that characters are trying to understand, they're trying to figure out what's wrong with the narrative right alongside the readers. All right. And you're looking at somebody trying to interpret a text or a narrative and figure out what's being disguised at the same time that these characters are doing it. You're trying to do it. I mean, it's a wow feature of Rowling's books, that you're looking at a mirror inside the text of what you're trying to do, and you don't want to make their mistakes, and you're trying to figure out how the author is creating this narrative interpretation. It's a reader's delight, a serious reader's delight. And Harry Potter, the two types of text vary book to book. Chocolate Frog card to Beetle the Bard, with the prophecy linking Voldemort and the Boy Who Lived as the text behind the overall story. Dumbledore and the Dark Lord are the master manipulators through storytelling. Just remember how Tom Riddle uses the diary in Chamber of Secrets to convince Harry that Hagrid is the heir of Slytherin. Really, that's quite an accomplishment. Hagrid as the heir of Slytherin. Just think about that for a minute. We believe that. And he uses the dreams and Phoenix to get him to the Department of Mysteries. And then Dumbledore tries to top him. He uses select memories in the Pensieve and Prince to frame Harry's understanding as the headmaster wants it to be as he goes to Deathly Hallows. He knows because of his withered hand that he's about to die. I'm talking about him like he's a real person. Rowling creates this character doing these things with this character. I mean, Rowling's dramas are protagonists and antagonists simultaneously dealing and dueling with stories, just as we are struggling alongside them to figure out what the external creator of these internal authors and readers is doing. Okay, now, okay, Nick, am I Mr. Hyperbole? I have a hyperbole tattoo on my shoulder. I'm not going to show it to you, too, right? But it's hard to overstate how important this is to grasping Rowling's artistry and meaning. The goal of her storytelling is to foster greater reader penetration. That's a Jane Austen favorite word, Not only, not even especially while reading, but in how we see and think after what we've experienced as serious readers. Penetration. Okay, it sounds like it's a sexual thing, but really it's about a transformed vision. Okay, we're meant to learn from our decoding and deciphering the dueling narratives, and to realize again and again that, like the characters, we were deceived and need to be more attentive and less gullible in the future. We need to see through what the narrative is, to penetrate it. She achieves this transformed vision in her readers through a variety of fascinating traditional tools. literary alchemy, ring composition, but always by providing us with a mirror within the story we're reading, both of characters trying to understand a text and white and black hats writing a story to deceive them. Now, Crimes of Grindelwald, the second Fantastic Beasts franchise film, is no exception to this rule. In fact, I was joking with Nick earlier that Rowling may have been so disappointed, the frustrating and infuriating things about fitting the woman to the dress experience she had with the first thing, that I think she just stocked up as many embedded text as possible so that no matter how many David Yates cut out, there would be some kind of survivor inside this thing. If anything, Crimes of Grindelwald suffers from too many interior texts and manipulative storytellers, so we're never quite sure whose narrative we're in, Newt's, Dumbledore's, or Grindelwald's. Okay, I'm going to try to go through these 10, up to 10, it matters how you count them, about narrative strands that others are writing for someone else to follow inside this book. The one that really just stands out is, I'm going to mess up this pronunciation, so all of you beastie favorite, people that know this, is the book, The Predictions of Tycho Dodonus. Now that's my Ciceronian pronunciation, whether it's Tycho or Tico, whatever. The Predictions of Tycho Dodonus. Out of nowhere, Rowling reveals that the Wizarding World has its own Nostradamus, a mage named Tycho Dodonus. Tina, Yusuf Kama, Travers, and Dumbledore are carrying, consulting, or discussing it as a well-known, authoritative set of prophecies throughout the second film. The characters are especially concerned with Tycho's prediction 20 that seems to refer to Credence Barebone. Son cruelly banished, despair of the daughter returned, great avenger, with wings from the water. Now, the thing with prophecies, and Rowling is the classical study major, means she's the mythology major. She doesn't study Latin or Greek. Prophecies, as a rule, are predictably misinterpreted. Odds are likely that it refers to Newt, Jacob, or Yusuf for reasons yet unknown to us as they are for Credence. The whole point of a Rowling embedded text is we struggle while reading the story to figure out the text the characters are struggling with, and we are meant to note their mistakes and not repeat them ourselves. All you beastie friends that know how that worked out, we'll save that. We won't spoil that for everybody. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is in Crimes of Grindelwald. In between the first and second Fantastic Beasts films, Newt's book of the same name is published by Obscurus Books, and he becomes something of a celebrity. Tina claims to have read Fantastic Beasts when in Paris she next meets up with the author, and she appears to have studied it closely. She knows that a salamander's eyes, if we have as look down below, you'll find something about salamanders, right? They have the quality of fire and dark water, though no such description is in the text that we have. I have 3 copies of Fantastic Beasts. I got the original, I got the big illustrated version, whatever. None of the salamander stuff has that in there. Which mystery sends us back to the text in question and to think about what she has been reading that we don't have, or also that she may have a touch of the power that her sister has. Then there's the newspaper, Spellbound, Celebrity Secrets and Spell Tips of the Stars. Really, do we have any copies of Spellbound, Nick? As Mina Lima or somebody made a Spellbound,
I'm not sure, but Mina Lima do or at least they used to do a very healthy business reprinting the props from the film. So I will take a look, see if there's something vegan. Yeah.
Queenie reports to Newt in London that Tina had read in an American magazine, Spellbound, that Newt was engaged to marry Leta Lestrange. Tina began to date another wizard thereupon, without so much as a word to Mr. Scamander that she was over him. This is really bizarre. We knew the two had been corresponding, and if it seems Newt had been a little too honest with his opinion of Aurora's, they were in congenial, strained contact. Why didn't she write if only to congratulate him on his engagement, which would, of course, have alerted him to the misunderstanding? Anyway, I think the answer is an echo of what Rowling wants us to take away from Mrs. Weasley's coldness to Hermione after reading in Witch Weekly it's a little bit like Spellbound for housewives, that the young witch was toying with Harry's heart. In effect, trust what you know of a person rather than what you read in tabloid schlock. Call it fake news messaging, a necessary boy-girl misunderstanding before reunion, and Fantastic's plot formula, or whatever. Spellbound is another embedded text for us to wrestle with alongside characters. Then we get the stories. These aren't printed stories, stories that characters have told themselves or have been told, which imprison them. Okay. The less explicit and more interesting narratives that Rowling embeds inside the books and screenplays she writes, the ones that are in every book, are the ones written by characters to deceive others, told by characters to deceive others or explain themselves to themselves. These stories are not written down, published, and read, but must be picked up from the characters themselves or circumstances in Rowling storytelling. In Crimes of Grindelwald, we get Yusuf Kama's unbreakable vow with his dying father. Okay? We don't get this story until we're in the Lestrange family tomb, when Kama bears all, but it is the tale within the tale that guides everything Yusuf does in his life, and the vow that was the reason probably that Corvus Lestrange was sent to America. He relates the first half or third of the Lestrange family history, a truth telling in the graveyard that is something akin to the Gothic tale Harry hears from the Grey Lady in Deathly Hallows. Then there's Leta Lestrange and the death of her brother Corvus. Woo! Yeah, there's the real interior narrative, right? Leta is a haunted character who is tormented with remorse for her role in the death of her half-brother Corvus. That story is in the background like her other half-brother Yusuf's, and we learn her tale from the Titanic just after we get his record of their shared despicable father. We can be confident that neither of them know or have shared what really happened. All we get is a story as they have it from their own tortured childhoods. Okay. Then there's the Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald blood pact. Now, this doesn't really come out until the third movie, but speaking of mistakes that made when young that linger into maturity, Albus tells Travers and company that he and Grindelwald were closer than brothers, but does not explain why he can't fight Gellert, not there at least. We're left to assume it's a lingering love or super fraternal bond. Dumbledore's story behind the story, though, is having made a blood pact with the Durmstrang devil. I love that. To me, that's what they should call Grindelwald, is the Durmstrang devil, which prevents their battling, man to man. What this story means is left very much open-ended. In the second film's finale, we get the Dumby jelly bond with the token that Newt returns, but that tale is clearly going to go into the third film. Then there's the stories that characters tell to manipulate others. These are the most interesting and most important ones, I think, of all the embedded narratives that Rowling puts in her novels, because these are those that the characters write to deceive other characters, perhaps even the whole wizarding world, which we may or may not understand as stories being told rather than reality. It's presented as fact of life. This is the Dark Lord inside his diary, deceiving Harry in Chamber, inside Harry's head in Dreamscape and Phoenix, out of sight after his goblet reincarnation at Little Hangleton, to make those announcing his return seem to be conspiracy theorists in the published media. In Crimes of Grindelwald, the villain again is a busy storyteller. Okay, the Durmstrang devil. Grindelwald to the world, he creates this. He conjures this fantasy that he is a man of peace and love, a liberator of wizards, and a friend of no mages. Gellert tells Rosier after they take over a Parisian home by slaughtering mom, dad, and child. Wow. I mean, that takes you right to the Potter family and Godric's Hollow, right? That's like, this is a Dark Lord moment. That they must not speak publicly about their plans to subject muggles to wizard rule. Everything has to be cloaked in terms of helping the cant spells and preventing the no-mages from hurting themselves in the world they share with their magical betters. Okay, and the rest of the film, especially his scenes with Queenie at the Lestrange Mausoleum Auditorium, Grindelwald makes this sale. He sells that narrative. That shows that Newt and Tina realize too late he's written them and the Auroras into a trap, and that they are making the sale to the witches and wizards present that Gellert is not a victimizer but a victim. When all the people from the ministry show up to shut down Gellert, they feed right into his narrative. And then there's Grindelwald to Kreenitz, that he wants the best for him and knows his origin and destiny. he edits the Irma Dugard version of his story, so we'll only hear the partial Leta Yusuf versions. Now, this all plays out in the last movie, so we'll get to that. Then there's my favorite little theory, and that's I think that Dumbledore has duped Newt that Frank the Thunderbird needed to return home to America, that the real mission that Newt got sent on was the Thunderbird mission back to North America. Okay, this is John's little in-house theory. And I think you can see it kind of in the shading in Newt's conversations with Dumbledore in Crimes of Grindelwald, that he's trying to tell his old mentor that he has figured out that he was manipulated to go to New York via the discovery of Frank the Thunderbird and change. He isn't happy about being made to act by deceit rather than straightforward persuasion, and resist Albus's more upfront pitch that he'd go to Paris to fight Grindelwald. Only news that Tina is there, already on the hunt, makes him find magical means to escape the UK despite the Ministry travel ban. Newt returns to Hogwarts at story's end to show Dumbledore that he now knows an important part of his undisclosed story, and Albert at last has a confidant with whom to write a compelling narrative, a competing narrative to Gellert's one about their relationship and his relationship with the world. Then you get Travers and Grimson's narrative that they are Ministry servants, not Grindelwald's. Dumbledore tells Theseus point blank not to obey Travers if he tells him to raid a secret meeting of Grindelwald's. I think we have to assume that Dumbledore, the accomplished Legilimens, read this in Travers' mind during their Hogwarts tete-a-tete, a meeting at which Gellert's double agent, knowing that Albus could not fight Grindelwald, was sent only to manacle the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Grimson, we are told in an alleyway conference with Gellert, is also in Grindelwald's service. Each, though, is obliged to tell a story in daily life that is not true in order to deceive others. Again, sujet fabula. Rowling, again, you sum all this up, is, as always, writing a story about storytelling and story reading, because man is the storytelling animal. I mean, we all have our narratives, our interior beliefs, our exterior beliefs about the world and what's going on. And we're subject to manipulation because we don't have time to sort through everything that happens to us. We have to have ideas by which we sort external stimulus and events and experiences. And those are our stories. And so Rowling, via her stories, okay, is telling us about storytelling and story reading so that we can be more competent as human beings, the storytelling animal. Crimes of Grindelwald, with its 10 embedded books and articles, sub-narrators, and character-written deceitful tales, is flush with interior text that the careful reader, in the game with the author to become more discerning, penetrating, best really story-aware. What she wants you to be story-aware, must notice stories within the story the reader is meant to solve. Missing this intratextuality, I suggest, is to miss the greater part of Rowling's artistry and meaning, not to say her greatness and singularity. I'm saying that, Nick, there's a real virtue to the Crimes of Grindelwald script, in that of all of her stories, it may be the one that is most overflowing with interior embedded texts of the published kind, as well as the much more important subliminal and distracting, deceptive kind. And the reader is called on to know those things. Of course, as a movie, it fails because David Yates doesn't get any of this, and he cut all these connections out. But we get the confusion. We get all the Shazette without any of the fabula. Tell me, David. Tell me we got something.
Sorry, John.
You said wow. I never want to interrupt the wow moment here. Go ahead.
Wow. Well, I mean, a fabulous run through of those texts. I know it was fun. After the film was released, sort of going frame by frame, looking for book covers, and that's the kind of thing I enjoy.
Well, Kelly Loomis, if you want the missing scenes and all that stuff, Kelly Loomis is the goddess of that kind of thing. She really provide that. And there's a link right below there go search those long lists of these things. I mean, again, Hogwarts Professor was writing 30, 40, 50 posts about these movies,
Yeah.
pre-production, release, week of release, and then how does it really work? Go through if you're interested in the movies. I'm short changing here because Nick and I are obviously both hostile audiences to these things. But if you're really into that, go read the deep work in the texts that are linked to below. Our embedded texts are in this post.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was a hostile audience. I think there's some level of being an incompetent audience, and the second is just a very short attention span.
That's right. You don't like films at all.
No. Yeah.
Wow, what an engineer! I love you.
So what have we got next, John?
I don't know.
What to talk about tomorrow?
I have a list in the shed here. A little scrap of paper. This is great. Here's my scrap of paper. There's all these things. Okay, so we did Lethal White. That was 15, and we've done Fantastic Beasts 2. Oh, now we've got a bit of a jam here. We have a decision to make, Nick, because Ichabod was not published as a book until November of 2020, but it was published online.
As a serial, and
in May, and Troubled Blood is sandwiched by those releases. So do we do the Ichabod first, or do we do Troubled Blood first?
Well, I think for most of us super fans, we were there at a serial release. We got excited before each release. We talk about where we were so far, and we're looking forward to the next. And this was in the middle of sort of COVID lockdowns, and it brings back just super memories for me, and a real want. I mean, do we live in a world where we could go back to Dickensian serial publishing?
That to me was the thing. This is the only time that Rowling has done serial releases. If she could somehow do it so that you had to pay $1 per chapter or something. But of course, that would make it, Troubled Blood would be what, $130 or something. That's quite the thing, Maybe I'm sorry. That's only you though could talk about the lockdown and say happy memories, Nick. Only a true socialist would remember the most period of postmodern history as a great time. It was a fun time in fandom. Yeah. It was an intense time, but of course at that point the tweet heard around the world. That's we're going to cross that line now.
Yeah.
Because 2018 when Fantastic Beasts comes out, as we've said, she's clearly preparing for her Solway Coagula moment, in which she breaks with really the madness of transgenderism as a civil rights issue. And that's we're about to cross, whether we do the Ichabod first or Troubled Blood first, it's all 2020, Nick, and 2020 was the what they call it, the annus horribilis, the year of agony. But still, it's the Negretto of Rowling's new life. It's like she anticipated her Kanreki. She went through all this. So you call, Nick. You want to flip a coin here? Ichabod. So you think Ichabod because that's we were there.
I think Ichabod first because I'm a little bit excited about the lake points of the Ichabod because I'm going to flip the lake upside down. So far, I've been talking about.
No, don't hurt the froggies. There we go. Look, flip.
Yesterday was raining so hard it seemed like we'd flipped the lake upside down already. So I've talked already a lot about how Rowling's life has impacted the text. With the Ichabod, really, we can talk about that, but we can also talk about how a text has impacted a life. So we know pretty much the story of that text from story genesis and a quite intimate family retelling to how it ended up with this multilingual serial release global phenomenon.
Yeah, Nick, this is, I mean, you were on the, I don't know what month you joined the staff at Hogwarts Professor. You were doing guest posts and things like that before but the Ichabod is really when you come on board.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, the history of that text. I mean, in a way, you anticipated that text, didn't you? Wasn't there some?
No, Christmas Pig, I anticipated.
Okay.
I spotted a planet by seeing what wasn't there.
Gosh, that's right. But the Ichabod is one of my favorites because of how it was released, in which Rowling, she released it over 7 weeks. And, she doesn't, in the published version, you don't see the parts of the book, but the parts that line up in terms of the turtleback structure are exactly those of the 7 weeks. So it was really fun. Everybody got to read that book almost as if it was a ring composition, because it is. But they got to see it presented as a ring, as if Rowling was saying, hello out there, It's sort of like when that the Harry Potter novel that begins with Owl Post and then finishes with Owl Post again, like that would be a latch, people. That would be the ring closing, or Into the Forest again in Deathly Hallows, closing the Into the Forest experience of Philosopher's Stone. Here was definitely, I think, Rowling having fun with her audience to see who would get this. That we'll talk about that. I'm where to go with that. I feel like reading Ichabod again tonight and seeing if I can find a house with 2 children in it. We definitely have 2 children we have 2 children on the run.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see. I have a new golden thread to start to track. I hope the weather cools down a little bit for you there. I know that triple digit Fahrenheit heat for you all is agony.
Well, after yesterday's downpour, it's a little bit overcast, but at least it's dry. I think the rain is coming back for tomorrow, John. I'll see you tomorrow.
Salute.